Hello. I'd like to talk today about the present situation in the world's affairs, especially the relations between the USA, Russia, and China, which are the three main actors at the present. And then we have the secondary actors, which is the European Union. And within the European Union, we have to think in Germany, of course, and the UK. Then in Asia, we have besides China, India, and Japan. And in the Middle East, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and of course Israel. Then in lesser degree we have Egypt, and then of course Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and they don't play a very important role nowadays respecting the within the conflict between Israel and Palestine, which is Algeria. Libya is totally destroyed. Iraq is also destroyed. And these are the present circumstances. Now we are living in a very dangerous world, because I think there, especially the United States, which is provoking conflicts, and taking an attack instance, and Russia and China, they are trying to delay the attacks, and of course to not respond to the attack of the United States with something that they would like to, because at the present time the United States is in the peak of its military power. They have many problems, and that might be some way of going around these problems, perhaps. Now, the United States is ruled by the Republican Party, but within the Republican Party, the President Trump is an anomaly in the politics of the USA in the last 40, 50, 60 years. So we have he's shifting politics, and it's very unstable, but the shadow government is so powerful. The shadow government controls the Congress, either Republicans or Democrats. They pick the military-industrial complex, the energy sector, and the media sector, which is the mass media sector. Now, of course, the so-called liberal in the Democratic Party, they like to replace Trump, and because he spreads the politics, nationalist politics, but and the media is controlled by the opposite sides of Trump. But that might be the surface, because the United States they have powerful people. Let's say they have about 400 billionaires or something more. But of those billionaires, there might be about, let's say, 10 or 20. They are very active in politics, and they found both parties. The other ones, of course, they also take sides, but they they are much concerned with their economic interest. Now, there is a logic in capitalism, and the logic is that they follow the profit. So we have different tendencies within the United States, but undeniable is a very, very powerful country, and nowadays they call them an empire. I call it a sui generis empire, because it's not like the classical empire we're accustomed, like the British Empire, the last empire that fades away, and it was replaced by the United States, and then another empire that collapses was the Ottoman Empire in the First World War in the last century, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and then of course the Russian Empire that was replaced by the Soviet Union. So the Soviet Union unilaterally capitulate is a very complex matter, but ideologically and politically capitulate and allowed the foreign powers, especially the United States, to meddle in Russia, and they were also the European, Germany and England and France. They were all trying to grab what they can, what they could, but especially the United States. Now this was reversed in a sense by the current administration, President Putin. And these are the challenge that we face nowadays, because they are nuclear armed powers, and they are fighting now. Lately, they're fighting for their existence too. Same thing with China, and that's the world we're living today, which is very dangerous, because they may clash. And my perspective is that any type of war between the United States, Russia, and eventually China, it will be inevitable in a nuclear arms conflict. And that's the dangerous things, that we are in a point that the arms that we have and that they have are so powerful, and nowadays they have the missiles, hypersonic missiles that Russia claims to have them, but the United States may eventually have it too. And they go, there is no way to protect themselves with such an attack. Same thing with the torpedoes, with the nuclear engine and nuclear bombs, and cruise missiles with nuclear engine. Those things were revealed by President Putin, but the question is, probably they have it deployed, probably, but if they are in process of deploying them, now the ambassador to the NATO from the United States said that United States might do sort of preemptive strike, and some other secretary of the government of the United States suggests a blockade to Russia. So, as we see, every passing month, the threats to Russia are getting bigger and bigger. And so far, Russia tried to be calm and see if those political problems in the United States may fade away in some sense. But I don't think so, because what they have is an idea force. Empires don't usually in the history tell us that empires, they are defeated or they collapse from within, like the Roman Empire. Other ones are defeated, like the Ottoman Empire, like the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The empire from Russia, it was replaced by the Communist Revolution. So United States will not go down in history so smoothly. And the challenge it faces seems to be very strong especially from the economic point of view. The United States lost the economic strength or the economic domination they had previous in the second part of the last century, but nevertheless it has the dollar, and the dollar is a reserve currency, and also the United States dominates the International Monetary Fund and other international institutions, the Bank of Settlements, and other international institutions. And when any institution turns against the United States does not support them any longer, like the International Court of Justice, which has been attacked by President Trump. And then they claim they established that the United States had the responsibility of guilt in threatening Iran. Now, we live in not a democratic world, because the United Nations, the Security Council, is not a democracy. And in the domestic political spectrums around the world, I may say, that democracy is a very nice word, very nice word. Is the government by the people. That was proposed by the Greeks. But what we'll see always in any type of society is I may think about the Pareto distribution, power distribution, 20% and 80%. The 20% dominates the 80%. In general terms. Now, if I apply the Pareto distribution from the 200 countries in the United Nations, 20% might be about 40. And those countries altogether, they control the rest, no doubt. Anyway, there are three or four, the three, United States, China, and Russia, but Russia is not a giant economic power. It's a giant in military power because it inherited the industrial military complex from the Soviet Union, and then on those bases they were developed with the latest technology. But if we think for a minute about Russia, is a democracy like the Western world that they changed from the socialist to the capitalist system with the democratic politics, democratic system, political system. But we know that every country has its history, and it's very difficult to pretend that the democracy, or so-called democracy in the United States, can be imitated in other countries. The same thing like in the UK, but that's a sort of facade, because in the UK we know that they have the chambers of lords and the commons, and the ones who are very, very powerful, and the queen, the Windsor's family. And then there, or we can think about the Rothschild families and some others. Same thing in the United States, Rockefellers and others. But they operate on the banking system mainly. And that's the world we are living. Now, the other countries, developed countries, they always have the same, something like the Pareto distribution, but every country with their particular history and geography. But in the end, that's what the world, the way the world is, especially all over the world. Now we might see that happening in Africa, in the Middle East, in the Arab countries, in the Saudis, the Saudis monarchy. That's a tyranny. the dictatorship in Egypt, the kingdom in Jordan. Jordan is sort of a custard pie. And then the powerful little state which is Israel, but very, very powerful. And they are very able too. And they are a nuclear power. And then we have Turkey and Iran, which is Persia. So this is the complex situation, of course, generated by the energy in the Gulf. That's the main problem. That's the economic problem. And Palestine is the political problem, the political conflict. And those are the main areas that their international relation is going in circles. Now, how long this situation might stay this way? I mean, the war is on words and sort of a hybrid war. It's not a cold war, it's not a hot war, but it's almost a war. It's economic war, definitely, and the United States is initiating that war with sanctions and things like that. And all this within the capitalist system, which is the structure, the foundation where all the others political and ideological tendencies, trends play their roles. Now, this is in the international arena. Now, in every nations, they have problems, they try to solve it, but the minority or the ruling classes, they always rule to the great majority, and that is not changing. But the tendency of the capitalists is to reduce the number of powerfuls, which are every year richer and richer and more powerful, and the middle classes are losing their ground, especially in the very developed countries, the United States and the European Union, advanced countries. In the other countries and the rest countries, the middle classes are very limited but powerful. Now, regarding the middle classes, international organizations and the national organization of statistics, they call middle classes the person who happen to make about $10 a day or something. Well, we know that that's not middle classes. I mean, my impression that middle classes are the ones who can live very comfortable, send their children to universities, private universities, that they have private um, health, insurance. Um, they have vacation. They have all kind of comforts, and they have a high standard of living. Now, they are calling other segments of the population, they're including them in the middle classes because that's the way to pretend that the capitalist system is performing well and is bringing progress to the great majority. And with the advancement in the technological science and sectors, could be a lot better for almost every human in this planet. Now, we have to think that the United States spent almost $800 billion in their armed forces. And the other ones, the next 10 countries, they spend another $1 trillion. Perhaps some more countries, but which is the note that we cannot solve the problems of coexistence. And that's the main problem that we are not resolving. And the other big problem is the climate change, that we are not resolving it also. So the future is not very promising, but it's very hard to predict what the future may bring. We can only project the future by the present situation. But the present situation is that they build them more aircraft carriers. They put it up more airplanes, more missiles, new technologies, never ending. And those are the problems that we face at the present time, but they don't seem to be in the international arena to have a consensus in order to have a peaceful world. We've been lucky that it didn't explode. So hoping that we keep the same luck in the future, but it's a matter of wishing to have luck, wishful thinking. Thank you.